Hello and welcome back to Nerd Doc. The latest Ari Aster film is starting to release in theaters, but it's not what you might expect. Despite what Google says, this isn't really a horror movie, it's much more of a comedy, and very different from Midsommar and Hereditary, although still with the running mother theme. There's a little bit of gore and some language and nudity to earn that R rating, but no jump scares and nothing that would really classify the film as a horror movie. What this movie does have is a lot of ambiguous, crazy scenes strung together to create a plot. There are very few scenes in the film which actually explain what's going on, and it can be difficult to determine what's real and what's not, so we're going to take a shot at explaining what's going on in Beau is Afraid. Either the film is just crazy, and that's that, or there's something else going on that simply isn't explained, leaving it up to the audience to interpret. If the film is just crazy, then there's nothing to really explain outside of what caused Beau's irrational fears, so we're going to push forward under the assumption that there is something else going on, which we'll try to explain here. As the film is super ambiguous, explanations are going to vary quite a bit, so if you view the film differently or just want to explore our take on the movie, leave a comment below and let's discuss. Of course, that means there will be spoilers for Beau is Afraid in this video. This is your spoiler warning. The film is also still in theaters, which means we can only use footage from the trailers, so please bear with us there. There are chapter timestamps, so you can jump around the video as you wish. We're just going to work through the main plot points of the film, providing our explanation as we go. The beginning of the movie starts off at Beau's beginning. It's a black screen that represents the womb. More specifically, this is the womb of Beau's mother, Mona Wasserman, and Beau is being born. Beau's birth isn't really what's important here. What's important is the conversation Mona has with the medical staff immediately following the birth. Beau's mother is already complaining about how the medical staff is treating her newborn, chastising them and questioning Beau's health. Of course, there's nothing actually wrong with Beau's health, this is simply to showcase how overbearing his mother is. This plays a huge role in the rest of the movie. Beau's mother is so overbearing that she's mentally and emotionally abusive toward Beau. She is so enthralled with her son that she convinces him he needs to forever be afraid of the world, which impacts his entire life, hence the title, Beau is Afraid. Next we see Beau in his late 40s or early 50s for his regular psychiatrist appointment. Beau is there to discuss his mother and the impact she's had on his life. It's clear that Beau does not like his mother and how she treated him growing up, and even throughout his adult life, but he's also too afraid to stand up to her. Whenever he tries, she guilt trips him and he succumbs to whatever she needs. Because of Beau's mental state and how far it's deteriorated thanks to his mother placing an irrational fear of just about everything in his head, the movie shifts back and forth between what's really going on around Beau and what he sees in his mind due to excessive fear. Up to this point, everything has been real, but once Beau leaves the psychiatrist's office, that starts to change. Beau lives in an apartment building in a very bad part of town. In reality, this probably isn't a great part of town anyway, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is in Beau's mind. To him, there are a seemingly infinite number of dangerous people who just hang out in the street directly in front of his building. He's so fearful of these people that he takes a running head start from down the street so he can reach the building entrance and get it unlocked and inside before anyone has time to react to his presence. In reality, while there are probably some nefarious people hanging around near his building, most of them would probably pay him no attention. There's even a report on the news of a naked old man running around stabbing people and killing them at random. While this report could actually be true, it fits right in with the chaos Beau sees in his mind of the people who hang out in front of his building. That night, Beau oversleeps due to his neighbor keeping him up all night with equally crazy thoughts, causing him to almost miss his flight to visit his mother. Unfortunately, in Beau's haste, he leaves his luggage just outside his apartment with the key in the door while he grabs something he left inside. Both the luggage and the key are immediately stolen, making Beau fear leaving his apartment without first changing the locks. Beau calls his mother to give her the bad news that he's going to miss his flight, to which she responds with a guilt trip to make Beau feel bad, further showcasing the emotional abuse she put Beau through his entire life. In a panic, Beau takes his new medication, which absolutely requires him to have water with the medication. In reality, it probably wouldn't be too bad to take it without water, but again, the irrational fears in Beau's head. Unfortunately, Beau is out of water, so he must venture to the convenience store right across the street, going through all the nefarious individuals while also leaving his apartment vulnerable. Beau decides he has no other choice, so he props the building door open with a phone book and makes a mad dash to the store. Things go poorly, to say the least, and the entire population of nefarious individuals not only gets into the apartment building, but takes the elevator up to Beau's apartment where they have a party that lasts all night long, forcing Beau to sleep outside his window on the fire escape. Now, once again, there are probably some shady people hanging around, but the reality of the situation is that they're very likely not at all interested in Beau or getting into the apartment building, let alone Beau's specific apartment. And they're almost certainly not as ridiculously crazy as Beau imagines them to be in his head. It's more likely that Beau simply ended up getting locked out of his building due to someone moving the phone book, then ended up sleeping on the fire escape. In the morning, Beau calls his mother again, only to find that she's died in a horrible accident and he needs to get home for the funeral. This really happens and isn't just in his head. However, some more shenanigans occur that result in Beau having a naked confrontation with a police officer, then getting hit by a delivery van. The naked confrontation probably never happened. In reality, Beau more than likely had an encounter with the naked killer who stabbed him several times, causing Beau to panic, run away, and get hit by the van. Then the police officer arrived and took him to the hospital. Beau replaced this terrible experience with the imagined police officer encounter in which he himself was naked. The people in the van were husband and wife, Grace and Roger. They lost their son, who was killed in action when his platoon mate, Jeeves, went crazy and killed everyone, and who now lives with them. They also have a daughter who seems equally crazy, constantly doing drugs. Roger is a surgeon, so they took Beau back to their house, where he stayed in their daughter's room for several days before eventually escaping into the woods. Our thought process here is that all of this ties into Beau's accident. After he was attacked by the naked killer and taken to the hospital by the police officer, his mind interpreted the hospital as Grace and Roger's house. In reality, Grace was probably just a nurse at the hospital, and Roger was a surgeon who mended Beau's stab wounds. Jeeves could have also been a security guard, but we'll see more of him in just a moment. A few interactions Beau has with Grace, as well as a call to his lawyer, imply that Beau had something to do with his mother's death, and that they can't bury his mother until he's present, so all these delays are extremely disrespectful to his now deceased mother. In Beau's head, even after his mother's death, he still can't do anything right toward her. This is the guilt that the emotional abuse from his mother has instilled in him, making him think he did something wrong, possibly due to simply missing his flight, which somehow resulted in his mother's death and now in her delayed funeral. This isn't what actually happened, but it's how Beau's mind interprets the situation after decades of emotional abuse. Beau escapes a mental facility / hospital / Grace and Roger's house, which causes Grace to send Jeeves into the woods after him. Beau hits his head on a tree branch and is knocked out for several hours. When he awakes, he encounters a pregnant woman who takes him back to a traveling theater group who has randomly set up a stage in the middle of the woods. This leads to a trippy animated sequence in which Beau gets married, has 3 children, gets separated from his family in a flood, travels the world for years looking for them, then finally is reunited with his sons just as Jeeves interrupts the proceedings, killing a number of people in the theater group and the viewing audience. Beau is knocked out once again, then hitchhikes to his mother's funeral when he awakes. Now, none of this actually happened. A more likely scenario is that Beau was knocked out by the tree branch, dreamed the rest of it, then woke up and hitchhiked to the funeral. It is interesting to note that his irrational fears didn't come into play at all when he was hitchhiking. Throughout the film, we see various flashbacks of Beau's childhood. These showcase some of the emotional abuse his mother put him through, including locking him in the attic when he wouldn't cooperate, which Beau assumes was just a dream. The flashbacks also provide insight into Beau's limited love life. According to Beau's mother, his father died on their wedding night when the marriage was being consummated and Beau was conceived. He had a heart murmur which was passed down from Beau's great-grandfather to his grandfather and finally to his own father. Beau's mother always told him he could never climax because he would die just like his father did. This is almost entirely due to the simple fact that Beau's mother did not want him to leave her, especially for another woman. Because of this, Beau has never had a relationship and is still a virgin. The closest he ever came to a relationship was when he went on a cruise with his mother when he was still a preteen. There he met Elaine, who took a liking to him, kissed him a few times, and told Beau to wait for her. So that's what Beau did. He waited, and waited, and waited. As the movie comes to an end, Beau arrives at his mother's mansion just as the funeral was over, so he went to sleep downstairs. Beau wakes up to find that Elaine has also arrived at the funeral very late. As it turns out, Elaine worked for Beau's mother. Beau's mother owned a quote-unquote super company that had its hands in a wide variety of areas, from security to pharmaceuticals to disposable razors. That meant his mother was very wealthy, which also meant that Beau was likely to inherit all of that money. When the adult Elaine realizes that Beau is at the funeral and has actually waited for her all these years, she takes the opportunity to blatantly seduce him and hopes she can get in on the money. This results in Beau having sex with Elaine in his own mother's bed, but Beau panics, fearing he will die if he climaxes. Of course he doesn't, but instead Elaine dies and suffers instant and severe rigor mortis. Now, this is a tough one to dissect. The sex probably happened, but our best guess is that Beau actually died at this point or was very close to death after suffering his own heart murmur or some sort of heart attack upon climaxing. His brain then transferred this occurrence to Elaine, visualizing the fear of climaxing that Beau has suffered from his entire life. In the film, Beau's very much alive mother walks into the room at this point and says she watched the whole thing happen with Elaine and that she faked her death to essentially get Beau's attention and punish him for his behavior. She has Elaine's petrified body carried out, summons Beau's psychiatrist out of thin air, and begins to call forth all kinds of emotional trauma from Beau's childhood, even revealing she secretly had the psychiatrist record all of Beau's therapy sessions in which he complained about his mother. Beau's mother once again locks him in the attic where he encounters his father chained up in the corner and a giant dick monster. Yes, a giant penis and balls with a face and claw-like arms just sitting in the corner of the attic. This is when Beau realizes he wasn't dreaming of being locked in the attic and that it really happened when he was a child. At this point, Jeeves randomly crashes through the attic window and attacks the penis monster only to die himself. Beau escapes the attic, confronts his mother, then strangles her for a brief moment. This causes his mother to actually die, despite the fact that Beau only strangled her for a few seconds, nowhere near long enough to actually kill her. Beau escapes in a boat, which leads to a trial in which he's sentenced to death for causing his mother so much trauma. The boat explodes, and the film comes to an end. In reality, this is likely when Beau's heart finally gave out and the illusions his brain created after the orgasm with Elaine came to an end. As we said at the beginning of the video, this is a crazy film that can be interpreted a number of ways. Did Beau actually die shortly after his encounter with Elaine? Did that encounter even happen at all? How much of the film was real, or was it only meant to be a crazy ride through a warped reality that wasn't realistic at all, and we all just wasted 15 minutes of our lives trying to come up with a reasonable explanation? Let us know what you think in the comments below. For now, that wraps up this crazy video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who loves Ari Aster films and complete and utter chaos.